Good morning, good evening, and good day. Welcome to our webinar on transforming rural lives through education, entrepreneurship, and innovation. I'm Yogesh Andlay, an alumnus of IIT Delhi. Innovation and entrepreneurship are very close to my heart as I'm associated with the India Innovation Growth Program, and I'm a co-founder of Nucleus Software and several other software companies. I am a board member of the Wheels Charitable Foundation, where I'm proud of the recent recognition given to us by Niti Aayog as an official NGO partner for technology transfer and innovation. The mission for Wheels is to offer livelihoods and sustainability. Where solutions do not exist, we encourage research and development at the IITs and other similar institutions through sponsorship. We work collaboratively with partners like IEEE, ISV, CII, Mission Samriddhi, Sevak, Spoken Tutorials, and others. Lately, we embarked on an integrated approach for smart village development, where entrepreneurship is at the core of making these projects sustainable. A brief introduction to Wheels activities was presented prior to the start of this event and will also run at the conclusion. We are a volunteer organization and depend on the generosity of our many donors who believe that scale can only be achieved by leveraging technology. You can also get additional information about Wheels at our website www.wheelsglobal.org and www.wheelscharitable.org. This webinar is made possible by generous grant from Smita and Ashok Siddhanti of Endina Inc., an environmental, health, and safety consulting company based in Washington, D.C. A quick disclaimer: all views expressed by the speakers in this webinar are their own and may not necessarily reflect or endorsed by Wheels Global and Charitable Foundations or its board and its members. Now, some housekeeping messages. All attendees are on mute through the webinar. You may ask questions to the speakers by entering in the Q&A box. If you need any help, you can chat with one of us by raising your hand or typing your request in the chat box. You may also send us the questions by email to info@wheelsglobal.org. A recording of this event will also be available on our website and on YouTube and Facebook. Questions from the audience will be curated and channeled to the speakers by myself or our moderator. In the many webinars that Wheels has hosted, we have noticed that key messages that has come out of it is when institutions and NGOs start to collaborate, there is a huge multiplier effect. Hence, collaboration, communication, and sharing practices is a key to better development. Today's webinar on transforming rural lives through education, entrepreneurship, and innovation brings together several highly respected NGOs that have implemented very successful models with measurable impact. Wheels is also proud to have been associated with each of them over the years. Our moderator, Mr. Bala Venkatachalam, is Executive Director of Pratham USA. He was a co-founder of a startup mobile technology company and developed solutions for large-scale data aggregation and analysis. He late worked for the Monitor Group, identifying and developing urban housing demand. Bala has an MBA from INSEAD, France, and is a chartered accountant. He also played competitive cricket and table tennis, representing Tamil Nadu state at a junior level. Over to Bala.
Thank you, Yogesh, for that warm introduction. It is a real honor to be moderating today's session with three leaders who've been associated with truly remarkable missions. But before I get to introduce them, I thought I could share a brief background on Pratham, and more importantly, our association with the Wheels Global Foundation. So Pratham was actually started in '95 as much more as an urban project in the slums of Mumbai by two leading academics there, Dr. Madhav Chavan and Farida Lambe. Our work itself over the years has been in two sort of buckets: children, age groups 4 through 14, and adolescents and youth 15 through 21. And increasingly, we are focusing on girls. So those are the two areas that we work on. Directly, Pratham's work reaches 12,000 communities, and we serve about 1 million children. And in partnership, more importantly, and since that's going to be a big part of our theme today, is how do we collaborate and other civil society organizations in 15 states, we reach another 10 million children. So that's our work on children. On the youth front, we have trained and placed over 100,000 young people across multiple trades over the last, I'd say, 6 or 7 years, and helped about 25,000 girls complete their class 10 examination. And this is where this is the place where our collaboration with Wheels actually comes into play. A few years back, as we're thinking about how do you take our work with girls' education to the next level, this whole idea of can we enable and provide access to technology for these young girls who are in rural and extremely sort of backward parts of the country with very little access came into play. And Wheels made a generous sort of grant for us to actually start offering devices to these young girls, which was then supported by a group from IIT Bombay. Now that work has powered our work in technology multifold now, and today our technology work is an integral part both on the children's side as well as on the youth side. And I'll talk a little bit about that, a little down my message on Pratham. So very briefly on the just continuing on my Pratham message. So the 25-year history, there are 4 things that I'd like to say that have stood out about Pratham's work. First is innovation, and I'm going to talk a little bit about each of those aspects. The second is measurement and impact. Third is collaboration, and I think that's a big reason for us to actually be here in this discussion today. And fourth is scale. So when we think of innovation, I mean, there are several things actually Pratham has pioneered over our 25 years of existence. But probably the most notable one, and notable I'd say, is that it's gotten a lot of attention lately, is our work known as teaching at the right level, which is fundamentally about how do you build strong foundational reading, math skills in young people at an elementary school level. And it's a very core skill for young people and often not looked at very closely. Teaching at the right level is probably one of the best bang for buck from an ROI, return on investment perspective. A $10 investment or 600-700 rupee investment on a young child over 40 to 50 days can get the child to be able to do reading and math. And I think, that's, as good as an investment as you can possibly think of. And for us, the interesting part of teaching at the right level is it's not when we do it alone, but how do you transfer some of this know-how to other civil society organizations, to governments, and increasingly it's now being used globally in parts of Africa and parts of Latin America. And it's a truly sort of global innovation, if I can say so. But as much as innovation is important, measurement and impact are a very core part of Pratham's identity. There's this old saying which says, what gets measured gets done. Our history of measurement is almost 20 years old. So Pratham's collaboration with professors Esther Duflo and Abhijit Banerjee dates back to the late 90s. As they sort of got into this field of randomized control trials, Pratham was a big sort of test ground for them. So the Teaching at the Right Level program that I spoke about, we've done 6 randomized controlled trials to show both the effectiveness of the program, but it's also helped us refine how, which things work and which things don't work, whether we do this ourselves or in partnership with the government. It's been truly a remarkable journey, but it's a big part of how we think and do our work, because ultimately the hard-earned money that we put into any intervention, we want to make sure that the outcomes reflect all the good work that's sort of going. And it's a very, very core part of what we do, measurement and impact. And all of this, innovation, measurement, and impact, it won't be possible if you just think of Pratham alone were to think that we have the answers. Societal problems are far too complex for organizations, including the government alone, to tackle. We fundamentally believe that collaboration starts at the micro level, be it the mother and the child or the mother and the parent, families, communities, and right up to government and other civil society organizations to make a meaningful impact. An example I can talk about is during this pandemic, we've our ability to sort of share our material and collaborate. We've had over 250 civil society organizations, NGOs, including Pradhan, Sevak, Khan Academy, that we've started sharing our content and know-how, and it's been a very fruitful and learning experience overall for all of us. And one of our panelists, Ekal Vidyalaya, Ranjani, and we've collaborated on a lot of the work that we do on education and education sort of technology. So I think it's a very core part of our identity is how do you make 1 + 1 much bigger than 2. And the other piece of it is we believe that fundamentally working with the public system, that is the government system, is essential to really transfer some of this to bring about long-term impact. And that's the piece. And the fourth piece, which is a logical extension, is scale. When we design programs, we fundamentally think that there are some underpinnings or key elements that are essential to actually take it forward. Cost efficiency is a very, very important aspect. So when I said $10 a child, if you think of what the government of India spends, relative to a cost per child versus what we spend, we are just trying to make the investment in education far more effective. So it's almost like a multiplier effect, if you want to think of it. The other aspect of this is the simplicity of the model, is how do you build models which then lend itself to being able to be adopted by other organizations. And this is the place I'd say technology. And technology is not only about the last mile delivery, whether it's giving the devices in the hands of a young child or a youth, but across the spectrum, across the value chain. If you think of it, be it in tracking, in communicating, there are several ways in which we could actually leverage technology to improve the overall delivery and the process. And I think it's a very, very core thing that we ought to be thinking about. But that's enough said about Pratham, I'd say. And I'm sure we'll have some opportunities to discuss in the question and answer session that sort of comes down the road. But back to Wheels. Wheels is, it's just remarkable how they've embraced this smart village idea, which is, leveraging strengths and making it measurable, achievable, and replicable through use of technology. And I kudos to Wheels and the Wheels Global Foundation for really, really thinking ahead and thinking in the sort of right way. And we are absolutely proud to be associated with them. And I'd like to, commend the Wheels board and the staff and the volunteers once again for their remarkable work. Let me sort of go on to our speakers. First up is Mr. Moncho Ferrer, who's the director of the Rural Development Trust, also known as the Vicente Ferrer Foundation, which is based in Anantapur, Andhra Pradesh. His father, Vicente Ferrer, started this foundation 70 years ago. And today, Anantapur, which is the largest district in India, is transformed to be a clean, model, rural area. Truly remarkable. They have schools, hospitals, and the thing that I'm most excited about is a test match ready cricket stadium. And they've recently started an entrepreneurship program with the Wheels Global Foundation. They have similarly developed over 3,600 villages in Andhra Pradesh, and over their history have served over 3 million children. Moncho is a graduate of the University of Kiel and the Stanford Executive Program. He's an ambassador in Anantapur for the National Clean India campaign and serves in committees established by the government of Andhra Pradesh. Please welcome Moncho Ferrer.
Hi, Bala. Thank you very much. And thanks to Wheels Global Foundation for making this happen here. And it's a real pleasure to be part of this program today, to be with such interesting people. Just a little brief on RDT. RDT, my father, my mother, and 3 volunteers, almost 50 years ago. It was these 5 people in the district of Anantapur, which was one of the most drought-prone districts in the country, and a place where nobody really wanted to go. But they had a very strong belief and commitment that a difference can be made, poverty can be fought, and a better world could be created. And it's been, well, last year was 50 years. RDT has completed 50 years. And from 5 people with what it started with, there are now a team of 2,600 people and working in over 3,700 villages in an integrated approach in education, working with women's empowerment, working with differently abled people, ecology, sustainable livelihoods, habitat, housing program, and also rural healthcare. And I guess this is where I'd like to make a special mention because of the situation that we actually encounter ourselves in today. Pretty much not just India, but over the world, rural healthcare has been, I guess one can say, neglected somewhat. And we find that today. And even here in Anantapur district or Andhra, what happened over 20, 30 years ago was that there was a huge mushrooming of private healthcare institutions, nursing homes, for example. And then government slowly, ceded sort of their role to these institutions and just had a very minimum basic structure in the rural areas. And then once COVID-19 hit, all these private institutions just shut shop and went home, and the government was found left standing on its own. So this is where I think our rural healthcare project with rural hospitals has really come out at this moment. For the last 30 years, we've invested a lot in rural healthcare, and that has really given results today. And on Independence Day, the government of Andhra recognized our rural hospital at Battalpalli as the best private COVID-19 hospital in the state of Andhra Pradesh. So it's really important that we realize how much importance that we need to give to rural healthcare in general, but especially rural healthcare. And we see that now. So that really needs to happen. There's one thing that I would like to share with everyone here. The work that we have done over the 50 years has really made possible a huge change in the idea of solidarity, in the idea of coming together and helping each other. There was a small seed some years ago sown, the seed of solidarity in Anantapur district. And it's very close to my heart because I was born in Anantapur, brought up in Anantapur, been part of this NGO world for so long, with always funds coming from outside of India and us not doing much ourselves here. So this was really getting our own communities involved. And this little initiative was called India for India, where we come together and we take up the challenges that we face in each and every single village. So it's made very simple for any person to be a part and contribute and to feel part of our society. So there are people from laborers to very large business people who are part of it, from giving 1 rupee a day to thousands of rupees per month. So India for India has actually captured the imagination of our community here. In just a matter of few years, there are almost 200,000 people that regularly contribute and have been contributing year after year. And they actually raise 6 to 7 crores of rupees a year. Of course, it's a large sum of money, but it's not the amount that's important, but the fact that there's such a large number of people, right from daily wage laborers, small shop vendors to business people everywhere, bringing people together and working for our own development, taking up our own challenges. That sense of giving, a sense of sharing that has come about in our society has been really special, and one very special thing for me to be part of Anantapur and see that. And I think one of the main reasons for not just being India for India, all the other projects that we take up and do, and the success that we have had, the key has been people's participation. People as the key actors in their own destiny, in their own decision making. So that has been something that has really helped us in dealing every aspect of development, every challenge that is there for each and every single village and community. So that's what we can see the results now, where it's not just, for example, RDT as us doing something, but RDT is part of the community and the people are part of RDT, and the work that we do, they are the main leaders and actors in the whole development of communities in rural areas. So, and seeing all these amazing work done by different organizations, I just want to say that it actually builds my belief and strengthens my belief in the power of humanity, seeing so many coming together and doing the work that we do and taking up the challenges that we do. And the power of humanity is something that I strongly believe in, and seeing all this today really consolidates and builds that belief in me. So thank you to everyone, and thanks, Bala, again. I pass it back to you.
Thank you, Moncho. Thank you. India for India, as somebody said, is a very powerful sort of call to action, I should say. And I'm sure we will have more questions for you as we get through the other panelists. So our next speaker is Mrs. Ranjani Saigal, Executive Director of Ekal Vidyalaya in the US. Ekal runs over 100,000 schools in rural and tribal areas in India and Nepal, providing education to nearly 2.8 million children. She was instrumental in bringing digital literacy to these remote areas with the use of mobile computer labs called Ekal on Wheels. Ranjani is the co-founder of a bi-weekly South Asian e-magazine, Lokavani.com. She's a graduate of IIT Bombay, has worked at MIT and Tufts University in the field of education technology for the last 25 years prior to being associated with Ekal. On a personal note, Ranjani is a dear friend who's also from the same city. We are both based in Boston, and it is my pleasure to welcome Mrs. Ranjani Saigal. I think we're having it looks like we're having a little bit of technical difficulty with Ranjani. Are you able to?
Can you see me now?
Yes, yes. Hi, Ranjani.
All right. Thank you so much, Bala. It's such a pleasure to meet all of you here. And Bala, it's honor to always be with all these wonderful collaborators who are doing so much to make a difference in India. And Wheels, I really thank you for not only being a supporter of Ekal and doing all the work with us, but also for putting together this fantastic panel. So I would love to share a little bit about Ekal. And as I talk about it, later, of course, we can have more questions as we go along. Ekal is an organization that is bringing education and empowerment to over 100,000 rural remote villages. When we talk about rural remote villages, we are talking about places that really have no roads that are closer than 6 kilometers from the village. So naturally, they lack access to education, health services, and of course, economic opportunity. So it is not very easy. India has 640,000 villages, out of which about 100,000 are really remote. And 70% of India lives in its villages, of course, and it is not very easy to bring solutions into the villages. So where do we begin if you want to bring about radical change in the villages? And our founder, who was actually an IIT Kanpur professor, Dr. Popley, in 1988, decided that the first step that we need to have if we need to bring about a radical transformation is to bring literacy, to bring education into the villages. But of course, when you have to go to a remote rural village, the standard way of doing literacy education does not work. So a 9-to-5 school, for example, is a problem because these children often have to work in their farms. They have to support their families and things like that. So he decided to create a very innovative school model whereby the teacher is actually somebody from the village itself. They train the teacher, and that is how these innovative school models, where we have just a single teacher school happening in the village, it is by the people of the village for the people of the village. So does the model work? Obviously it does, because we now have 102,000 schools, both in India and in Nepal. Now, because we are running these schools in these very rural areas, we never decided to invest in the infrastructure. We really invest in the teacher. 60% goes to pay the teacher, 30% goes to train the teacher. So it is the training of the teacher in a very unique and innovative school model that makes the schools, viable in the area. So we really, over about 80% of our teachers are women. So about 80,000 women in rural remote villages have been empowered to become the acharya, or the teacher of the village. We have a very unique curriculum that works to empower our students as well. We really have a pan-Indian presence. We are all over the map in India. There is no state that we don't have a presence in. You can see, for example, I was very, very pleased to see our teachers from Arunachal Pradesh. We have, many wonderful people from all around the country. What do our alumni do? They really take on jobs at the front line in the rural areas. And of course, many of them have become part of our army, part of our police force, and many other jobs that makes, it becomes an important opportunity for these young people to serve their country, to serve their community. So we were very, very honored because of our scale and our sustainable nature for over 30 years. We were very honored to receive the Gandhi Peace Prize, which is actually the highest award given by the government of India. And what is our real goal? Again, it really is not just education, it is integrated village development. What does that mean? We want to work on health and hygiene. We want to bring sustainable farming, skill training. And of course, now digital literacy is a very important part of what we need to do, because moving forward, it's not just literacy, but digital literacy is required so that people don't feel left out of the digital economy. Now, the big focus for Ekal, which is slightly different from many other organizations, is the fact that we really want to work to build up the economy of the village itself. So our training, whether it be in skill training, whether it be in literacy, the goal is actually to build up the ecosystem so that our alumni can actually find good productive jobs or good productive economic opportunities, either in the village itself or close by. So in the past, because our villages are so remote without any roads, this idea of building up a sustainable ecosystem in the village itself was very hard. But today, technology really presents us with tremendous opportunities. When I joined the organization, I remember seeing the slide on my left here, which was, the teachers use and the students use anything available to actually, create, a board or, how to use tools to make education possible. And now, we have been successful in bringing digital literacy. As I always like to say, I'm sure the buffalo is also happy that it's not being used as a, it was a big challenge. When I joined Ekal, actually, I had worked in the field of education technology for many, many years. And I thought, oh, I'm going to bring Khan Academy or something like that into the villages and voila, there we're going to solve the literacy problem. It wasn't easy. Connectivity, power, there are so many challenges that happens. And most importantly, the availability of trained personnel in the villages to actually provide such training was a big challenge. So in the beginning, we tried to put a tower, a power tower in one of our villages, to be able to get, internet connectivity. And I remember the first time I was able to Skype with the people in the village, I was so excited and I saw that the lights were off in the room. And when I asked them what happened, they said, oh, the tower is powered by solar, but there is no, the light in the room is not, and hence they did not have electricity. So it was a big challenge. And I'm really grateful to Wheels because through Wheels, I was exposed to the spoken tutorials program that is created at IIT Bombay. And, finally, the solution that we decided to put for bringing digital literacy was to create a mobile computer lab, and we call it Ekal on Wheels. And it's got a solar panel, as you can see on the top. It's really a retrofitted school bus, because again, to take these buses into those villages where there are no roads is a big challenge. And so it was a wonderful effort that we were able to put together. And then we got spoken tutorials on the, the laptop. So there was a spoken tutorials, by the way, is a way to bring digital literacy in the language of the village itself. So it can be in Assamese or Tamil or Bengali, whatever the language is there, that is where it is the self-learning happens in that language. And that has been a big boon for us, especially since we are scaled all over the country. And we are really proud to say today that we have, from that time, 36 such buses going around the villages. And, we have about 15,000 graduates actually. So Spoken Tutorials also has a certification program that they put together for us. And these graduates are getting jobs in the, as frontline, workers in the rural areas where they need digital literacy. And more interestingly, they are also starting their own little cyber cafes. And there was a fabulous, few cafes where the biggest service they provide is either helping people upload new Bollywood tunes, or they put a little bit of a photo studio, So really unique in Spoken Tutorials, this was possible. And there, after we worked on that, we actually, because this was so complicated, actually we were able to get a Digital Trailblazer Award from HP for making this happen, because going to rural areas is not easy at all. It's a very, very interesting thing for us. Now we are also actually bringing tablets into our schools themselves, so that digital literacy can start right from day one. And here again, we are very grateful to Pratham for sharing their content. Many of their content that they developed to teach and learn using the tablets have been very, very effective for us. And currently we are using eShiksha in 1,200 schools, and it's our hope to really scale it in a big way. The children not only are getting digital literacy through this process, but are also excited to learn in new ways. And as one of the young women told me when I met her about what this has done to her, she said, Didi, aapne hame bhavishya ki aur हाथ लगाने का अवसर दिया. You allowed us to touch the future. So really, this is where we are going. We feel that the technologies are providing tremendous opportunities. Now we can actually connect not only, to provide education, but e-commerce opportunities, so that we can maybe bring more economic opportunities into the villages. And it is our hope that this will transform the villages into becoming self-reliant, in which case we want to get out of charity roles anyway. We can bring health services through telemedicine. We can do many, many things. Technology has just opened up Pandora's box of opportunities. Again, skill training now has become a big, what I call our operating system. We know now how to go into a village. We have a live and credible presence in the village, but the youth now do want opportunities, because really most of them don't want to become migrant labor. They don't want to migrate out of the villages. So our first focus was on women, like many of our fellow NGOs, and tailoring was a very interesting opportunity. And as one of the women said, that they started making about 2,000 to 5,000 rupees just running tailoring shops in the village. And this, she said, has allowed her not to become a laborer in the city, but rather have a lovely, productive and empowered life in the village itself. And it has actually really helped even postpone marriage times in for the village itself. Telemedicine experimenting with in a big way. And what telemedicine means is a thing with us and helping us use their Sevak program in about 79 of our villages. Our big focus is on sustainable agriculture, and we really hope that we can not only increase the produce that comes, which will help improve the life. We call them Poshan Vatikas, or nutritional gardens. So we teach them to grow things that are better for themselves, and of course create value-add product, be that good quality turmeric, be that moringa powder, or anything else that can have big sale value and thus bring better economic opportunities to them. So really, at our core, what we have is a very sustainable model. We know how to go into a village. The villagers trust us, and thus we are able to add more and more services as we go along. And of course, we've been very grateful to all the collaborations from Pratham, from actually many other NGOs as well, because we are an operating system that can actually take on and absorb a lot of the any collaborative efforts that comes our way. And as you can see, we know how to scale. So a lot of the different things have scaled. And of course, we work very closely with the government as well. In fact, we are bringing a lot of the skill training programs of the government into the villages as well. One of the biggest things that has happened is during COVID, we really found how important and valuable our Ekal infrastructure is, because we were very quickly able to, and because we have given digital literacy using WhatsApp and phones, we were very quickly able to bring information out into our villages and impose the quarantine, impose the health and safety regulations. And we were really fortunate to tell you that we have had really very, very minimal COVID cases in the villages. We used our tailoring centers to actually produce masks, because it is really hard to bring masks into our rural villages. And we were able to produce over 3 million masks and distribute them to frontline workers who live in the rural areas. So at the very core, as I say, we really have a well-established network in actually over 100,000 villages now. We have really a strong ability to scale, and we're really looking to use technology in very creative ways to make that difference. What makes us work? Why are we able to do everything at a very, very low cost of $1 a day? We have over 400,000 volunteers from the village level to the cities who work very hard, who are invested in the outcomes. And so I really, really look forward to new collaborations, of course, with Wheels and Pratham already, but with any other people in this group who might want to come and work with us to make a difference. If you have an innovative ideas, Ekal is waiting for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ranjani. That was really inspiring. And I'm sure we're going to have a fair bit of discussion as we open it up for question and answers. Our third speaker is someone who's innovated a novel way for vocational training through creation of public-private partnership, Kalyan Chakravarty. Kalyan Chakravarty is the founding Sevak and Executive Director of PanIIT Alumni Reach for India Foundation, or PARFI. It is a nation-building initiative of IIT alumni with a mission to enhance incomes of the underprivileged through livelihoods education. They started by establishing a not-for-profit joint venture with the state of Jharkhand and offering loans through NABARD. He's an engineering graduate from IIT Madras with postgraduate in management from the Indian School of Business, as well as exec program from the Harvard Business School. Kalyan started his career in FMCG before transitioning to the social enterprise. He's a fundamental believer that applying market-based solutions for societal problems and development is key to actually making meaningful and long-lasting changes. Kalyan is also part of many sort of think tanks and committees within India. It's my pleasure to invite Kalyan.
So hello everybody. Thank you for to Wheels for a wonderful opportunity. I think we've had some stellar people who spoke about wonderful work they're doing, truly inspiring. And honestly, after that, for me to follow up is obviously not easy. But the idea is that we are kind of a different model to the whole thing, and that's why we are kind of figuring out how to take whatever Ekal and Pratham and the entire Anantapur initiatives, all of them are doing in a localized fashion or at a very large scale, with a little more focus with government participation. So today, the entire discussion is on how do you. Is everything? Yeah. So the entire discussion is on how we can make government collaborations work and in transforming rural lives. And we have some interesting insights that come from ground, and so we will get to that, right? So I represent the PanIIT Alumni Reach for India Foundation. It is an initiative of the PanIIT alumni, of course, in India, and it's headquartered at IIT Bombay. So let me start with 3 insights that we've got, because this webinar is about some takeaways, and I really wanted the audience and, of course, the peers and everybody to kind of get some insights on how we work with government and what are the learnings at least we've had. The first question is that, so this is what is called ABCs of insights, right? So the first one is access, right? I think the point Ranjani rightly said, access is everything. And while, of course, primary education can be delivered in a very spread out manner, when it comes to vocational education, much like the IIT system, we kind of need to bring very high quality infrastructure. So we've actually believed that access in a residential setup, in a form and way that is amenable to the poor, that is very, very important. So the motto of the entire foundation is to bring the IITian spirit into vocational education. So that's why we are trying to see whatever, like IITs have campuses, we are also building campuses. So we're taking a very similar approach, but at an ITI and sub-ITI level. So that's what we do. We believe that access is very important. This is a story of a person called Narayan, is one of our ex-candidates who actually, featured in National Geographic. So this is the village where he comes from. He went through the Gurukul program and he actually got a job in Dubai. Of course, this was pre-COVID. But the fact is that the transformation that can happen in 6 months when somebody was in this kind of a rural setup to this kind of a Dubai setup and earn and send back money to the family through structured, skilled, intervention, that is very transformative. And therefore, I think we have to develop systems for the poor. So we should not juxtapose what we have and say, okay, we'll give some quota and reservation, but we have to reimagine how we can deliver this for the poor. The second, I just wanted to engage the audience. So you can guess what's happening. Obviously, it's some kind of entrance exam. It's definitely not IIT, but this is the kind of a Kaushal College admission test that we do, which is actually, very popular. Some 17,000 odd kids wrote for 720 seats. So if you give that kind of access to high quality learning facilities, and we have a very unique system that when we say access, we actually give preferential treatment to poverty. So we give poverty-based ranking after a merit cutoff. We orphans straight away get admission. So the idea of the entire thing is we have to make a system that is very, very amenable and keep poor at the heart of design of that, right? So if you give access to best in quality education, like you saw with Narayan, who became a plumber, there is a girl from this household who's actually joining Apollo, and she's earning per month what their full family income was for a year. So 24,000 rupees, which is about, in dollar terms, maybe $300. The kind of money that this kid is going to earn now is, that kind of money per month. So that's a 10-time kind of an impact. And we use some UNDP, multidimensional poverty measurements, etc. So the first A is of access. So it's very important that we build system keeping poor in mind, and we make it, like any other system, design it for them. The second is it should not be, at least our belief is that it has to have some kind of a business model in a social sense. So it's a social business model, so to speak. And for that, we have a very interesting case study. We have a 100% skill loan model where all the students get a 100% skill loan, so that they don't need to spend anything out of pocket. Their inability to afford is not a constraint in them getting access to the best education. And these are some of the results. We've actually become India's largest public A&M education system. A&M in India is the vocational nurse, right? So this is the first rung of nursing that can be given at little more mass level. It does not require same level of aptitude as a proper registered nurse. So even there, we've actually managed to get state rankers and everybody else. The idea is that if we can give high quality education, to these people, and it works, right? So they actually deliver. This is the kind of setup that we have, fairly state of the art. Honestly, the simulator, etc., all of that, what we have, which is technology enabled, is comparable to some of the best in the world. I've personally seen Singapore, Johns Hopkins. Honestly, we have very similar looking setup, right? And the qualified faculty also come from ex-army, and we have a colonel doctor who's a director. So I think if we can actually put together a social business model, I honestly don't believe that poor are happy getting free substandard stuff. They are okay if they can enable a funding structure to pay for tech-enabled quality vocational education. And so these are some of the snapshots of our culinary setup, and here the students manage this cafe, and they kind of learn entrepreneurship. So similarly in manufacturing, some of us in IIT obviously experienced this workshop kind of a thing. So the idea is to kind of put it all back in a very structured ITI level, modeling. So this is the loan model at the heart of that. So what happens is the admission into the institute enables a loan, much like if you have got IIT admission, but you don't have money to study in IIT, there is a bank that is obviously coming to rescue. And then once they actually get a job, because there's an assured placement at the end of this, they actually repay the EMI. So that's how the model works, and that's what we've done. So this is the story of Chano, which is one of the rural remote tribal areas near Ranchi, right? So the second B is a business model that has to have poor, a social business model that has to have poor at the heart of it. And honestly, bringing market mechanism is a very, very powerful force for self-correction. So this automatically assumes the quality of training is good. Salaries are, obviously there are jobs and good salaries so that loans can be serviced. So we treat our candidates as customers, not as beneficiaries. So that is a very different take from initiatives which are much more charity driven. So that's an interesting milieu of what we have done. And the third learning, and this is the prima facie topic for today, which is collaboration. So how did we really do this? We've actually in Jharkhand, we expanded to kind of, in every district we are present. And we actually train 10,000. We have an educational system for 10,000 students per annum, which is one of the largest in the state. And these are 100% placement, very high intensity quality training. So this has happened because we've done a non-profit joint enterprise. So we actually have a full-fledged, full-time company that was set up in collaboration, in joint partnership with the government. So they actually have equity. We have equity. It's a not-for-profit. Section 8 in US language is a 501c registered kind of an entity. And this is actually government recognizing that there's a non-profit public-private partnership that is possible for delivering public goods, for delivering goods which are in the nature of social goods or common goods which are important, and the government is not in a position to deliver them. And so we've brought that in Jharkhand in this model. It has all the elements that IITian spirit is defined by this graphic. It has 100% placement, best-in-class infrastructure. Just like IITs are spread across all the states of the country, we have this in every district of Jharkhand. Similarly, admission is much more poverty-based in addition to merit, and this all works in the umbrella of an institutional, a partnership with the government. And of course, it won awards and civilian awards, etc. So we hold 60%, they hold 40%. So that's the interesting piece. We are in the driver's seat. The government is actually in the enabler seat, and that's a very important takeaway from this. And the energy, the synergy which comes from alignment of mission. So, for example, Ranjani was talking about what has happened in COVID. Because we were a state entity, we got an opportunity to set up COVID testing labs in flat 1 month time in across some of the most remote parts of Jharkhand for the government, and we've set up testing centers of 100,000 people testing capacity. Right, so that's the kind of value they see to have a very high quality developmental partner with them. Of course, the important thing in the C for collaboration is also C for credit. The credit of the entire thing should go to the government. We should be in the background, which is very fine. Honestly, I think PanIIT is very secured in its, it's known. It's so obviously that's fine. The idea of government saying that we've enabled it, and they've enabled it for whatever it's worth. So we should let them take the credit. So it's that way politically, it's they make announcements. They say we have set up this high quality stuff within the government system. So that's good. If they take pride and ownership, that's fantastic, and it works, right? So that's what it is. And this is the blue chart where we actually have presence in every district wherever you can see a flagpole. So that's the kind of this thing. These are the various buildings and lands and the assets we control. So in some sense, we've been able to put together a very high quality vocational education architecture in the state, in every district, in a very systematic fashion. And in the last 3 years, this has happened. This is the latest initiative, which is called the Kaushal Vidya Academy. It's a greenfield proposed LEED certified campus of about 75 to 100 acres, which has which is 11th and 12th integrated with ITI. So the students coming from, say, Ekal, Pratham, and some of the other initiatives which are in education, when they want to get to employability, then we bring them here. This is exclusively for government school / people who are from the poor. So this is not where you have money to pay, you cannot get admission here by definition. So that's the kind of models we've been able to do, fairly high quality. These are the labs I was talking about. So all of this got set up, and the government therefore kind of, becomes a very large, it's the largest, impact investor or a philanthropist in the world. So we believe that without them on board, honestly, scale is difficult, right? So therefore they've come on board, and here in our experience, really all in. So that's something we should give credit to them for. And thanks to Wheels, it's been a fantastic partnership. They are helping us scale the same thing across other states. So to other low HDI states, Uttar Pradesh and Jammu Kashmir. So we're talking to a whole bunch of states to kind of replicate this. So in conclusion, I just wanted to say that the ABCs of the takeaway with working with the government is, one, we need to have access at the heart of this, access for the poor. It cannot be completely funded or bankrolled by government. There has to be some private sector efficiencies coming in. So that's why the social business model or the skill loan model that is at the heart of it. C, it has to be collaborative. We need to be on equal footing with the government. Each of us should do what each of us is good at. We are very good at execution, finding jobs, talking to the IIT network for employers. So that's what our strength is, high quality training. The government is excellent in going to villages, putting their grassroots level machinery on the job. That's how the 17,000 admissions happen. Each collector kind of makes a dictum and it kind of becomes a very government-led initiative. So it is possible to work with the government. I honestly think Indian government, and especially state governments, are becoming very progressive. So I honestly welcome all of us. I know we call ourselves NGO, non-governmental partner, but I think maybe we need to think of NPO rather than NGO to kind of say we are not for profit, but we are very, very open to work with the government. So that's from my side, and that's it about the three pillars. And I just want to say this, that the model works well if there are three trifecta of cases that get merged. One, there has to be impact case. That means there has to be benefit to the poor, right? Second, there has to be a business case. That means it has to be economically more justifiable to do this. Like skill loan, there is obviously a copay from the candidate. It's cheaper than government paying for it 100%. Third, there has to be a kind of the business case. The impact case comes together in the political case. The political case is jobs and education and all of these public services or social services are something for the government and for the politicians. It's a great thing to kind of showcase that is expected of the government anywhere in the world. So it's a very good sector to be in, and healthcare and education are always priorities for the government. So as long as there's a political case and it makes sense for them from their vote bank constituencies, it really works. So our function of this is exclusively for SC, ST, Dalit, all the minorities and economically weaker sections. So we don't distinguish by caste as much as poverty, but it happens to be a proxy variable. So that's how this has been a very interesting journey, and I hope you got some insights of access, business model, or some kind of a sustainability model, and collaboration with the government as the way to do this. Collaboration generally, including with government. And I really want to thank Wheels for their phenomenal support in enabling all of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kalyan. That was very inspiring. Your ABC of a theory of change for a different societal development. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about that. We're now going to move into Q&A now. And so we have about, as you can see, there's a Q&A window. I can see some questions coming there, and I can request the panelists, if you're able to respond on or through the Q&A panel, please do so. But to get us started, we're sort of an interesting point in time. There's obviously the pandemic, but what's also happened is, for the first time in 34 years, the government of India has actually come out with an education policy. It's called the NEP came out end of July. And I think, I'm going to pose this to each of our panelists, and if you could just, I'm sure we could have a 2-hour discussion on the NEP, but just from your perspective, and maybe Kalyan, I can start with you, and then Ranjani, and then Moncho. How do you see the impact of NEP for the work that both you are doing, but the larger, if you think of yourself, Kalyan, seems like you're building the skilling ecosystem of a different sort of, business model, if you will. How do you see that, and what does the NEP address or does not address? I mean, there's a lot of ground to cover, but I just request you to so that we get through other questions as well.
I'll just give a minute to it. So honestly, NEP, I think, is a fantastic start. Incidentally, Amit Khare, who actually rolled it out, was co-chairman of this entity where he was part of the government nomination. So I think it's a great start. The government of India at least has put it out there. The only, I think, 2-3 pointers we had when we kind of deliberated on it was that one, for vocational education, it takes an approach of, like I mentioned, add-on approach. Okay, you want to teach moral science, add a period of moral science, right? Vocational education is not like that. Be it Germany, Singapore, world over, it's a different way of learning. It is practice-oriented. It's not classroom-based. So unfortunately, we felt it was more a strap-on or an afterthought rather than designing it. So one of the very strong recommendations we've given is that the National Council for Vocational Training, which is actually the ITA regulatory body, should become equivalent to a CBSE or a AICT or any of the state boards, so that actually it can drive education in vocational space. And it integrates 10th, 12th. So even in our Kaushal Vidya Academy, it is ITA with 11th and 12th. It is not 11th and 12th with ITA. So prima facie, it is ITA. We are teaching some academic stuff because we need to show compliance. So that's important. The second thing is, I think somewhere we need to let the market come in. And that, I think, has been our educational, educational regulation has been fundamentally believed on footing to not believe in market. I honestly think that's not fair. I honestly think the individuals are very capable of making choices. So, for example, I'll give you a simple thing. So they said IIT should become full-fledged universities. We said IITs would do what it takes for the IIT students and the employers that are coming to IIT. For example, IIT Madras has launched a tech MBA. So if somebody wants that, they will give it. But you can't say you start, law and everything else because it has to be done. There is no basis to start or not start. That basis has to come from market. So we believe that regulation has to give space to market. And lastly, we also believe there's value in economies of scale. In all of this, the idea is that we should have, so for example, we should have only middle schools. Every school need not offer all 10 classes. You should actually have, because the specialization, the way it works is very, very different. So people can graduate from, campus to campus, but each campus has to be customized for that lot. So these are the 2-3 suggestions we said, but it's a good step in the right direction. More fine tuning on the way, but I think it's a great start. But I hope less regulation and less government and more governance is
Thank you, Kalyan. Ranjani, any comments from your side? I mean, you beautifully said that Ekal is the OS, the operating system, and a lot of things can sort of happen. But how do you see the NEP playing out? From where you're sort of seeing Ekal's work.
Right. I have to say that, of course, there's a whole team in India that's really looking at, the NEP and really understanding how it will impact our work. But a few things that I really thought were wonderful about the NEP, I think many things actually, just like Kalyan was pointing out. But first of all, the fact that Anganwadi, they have given importance to the fact that preschooling is also part of that, curriculum. That I think is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I suspect, for us, our education happens in that preschool, because we take people who are not literate and take, immaterial of the age. It is the preschool that, that kind of age that we are going to. So I suspect this kind of a policy might bring more resources to us. So for example, one of the things I saw again was the emphasis on local languages. For us, again, that's a very, very important thing because, in those rural areas, we are not teaching in English, even though English is a subject that is taught. But for us to promote that is very valuable. And in fact, I saw that the government is going to develop some e-courses in local languages that is there. And given that we have technology now, I think this might become a more seamless integration into, by the way, I just wanted to say that once they finish we work with children between a middle school or a high school. And so if we have courses that are starting at, Anganwadi level and now with technology coming to bring that kind of a training, I'm very excited. I mean, if the devil is in the details, of course, but if the implementation happens as, is promised, I think it is really phenomenal. And personally, I'm really excited about this opportunity that, they have this not only local language, but learn another Indian language. I think that will allow, especially in Ekal, we have a network that's all over the country and people to be able to communicate with each other, not just in Hindi or, in English, but in other local languages. I think that can be powerful. And of course, vocational training as well. I think many of the comments Kalyan already made, and I think those are phenomenal comments. But of course, at this time, it's very new to us and, we are looking and seeing, but I think, the Ekal team also has been very involved in the preschool, with the government to give a little bit of an input into that local language, preschool, those kinds of definitions. Because I think in general, if you keep things localized, we believe that very strongly. If you keep things localized, they can really make a big difference. It is the way to move in the future. COVID has taught us that we cannot have migration. It causes great difficulty. So really strengthening localness, I think is very valuable.
Very, very true, Ranjani. Thank you for those comments. Moncho, anything at your end as you on the new education policy?
Well, yes, Bala. I mean, see, we always have policies coming in and going out for the last, I don't know how many years, in various fields. We've seen many of them. I'm sure you've seen many. It's interesting for all of us to get together, look at it and see what it's made of. And I think, yes, there are many good things in it, and there are a lot of politics in it and everything comes to down to it. But in the end, how does it get implemented right at the grassroots level is the key. Like in the past, we have seen so many education policies that have come up, but you go to a village and say, can you read this page, one paragraph, and they are unable to read one sentence. Yeah. If you ask a kid, could you explain to me something about your village? Unable to express themselves. So we need something that really is going to lighten up the whole education system as it is. So that's more important. And the whole setup, the whole system really needs a kick up the backside, I guess. For some drastic changes. We need those basic skills to be seen right at the village level, because what we have really is not sufficient.
No, thank you. Just to sort of complete that, and I know there are other questions coming in. I think it's a very forward thinking, and I agree with what Ranjani said, that the focus on early childhood. And there's somewhere in the NEP it says that unless children are able to get through those foundational skills or early grade skills, middle school, etc., is almost meaningless, right? And to your point, Moncho, you go into those villages and children are not able to read now. It's gut wrenching. So I think this change from focusing on 3 to 8 years is a very important piece. And also the focus on the vocational training has been a sort of heartwarming. And fully agree with all your comments that ultimately it's a policy, practice, and reality may be very different. Right. So how do you, it all boils down to, translating that intent into actions and all sort of good things. And how do you, enable that? And that happens not at the national government level. It happens at the grassroots level. It happens at the cluster level. It happens at the block level. It happens at the sort of village level. And I think that's going to be the real sort of essence of this. But thanks so much. Maybe I can move to the sort of next question. Given a lot of this is about entrepreneurship and technology and stuff, and maybe Kalyan, if I can again start with you, as you, it's interesting that you've got in your business model, you've got government as a partner, right, in Jharkhand. So, I mean, there are stats saying that, there are 2 million young people coming into the job markets, every month. So whatever, 10 to 20 million young people coming into the job markets annually and stuff. This is a model. But how do you see something like this, going from, I can see that there's a partnership with Wheels. How do you see this going to other states and stuff? And what do you think are some of the barriers to adoption, right? Because, how replicable may this be? And maybe it already is, but perhaps you can clarify.
So that's a good question. So I just wanted to add a comment. Like you said, I think Moncho has perfectly said it. There should be no treadmill effect. There's a lot of distance covered, but no displacement. So we need to keep watching. Yeah. So coming back to this question on entrepreneurship and how replicable the model is, I think honestly our belief, Bala, is that we need to really look at not what we have done, but the template of what we've done. That's extremely valuable because so far, like I mentioned, probably in the past decade or 2 decades, there was a government and non-governmental, but honestly now with development becoming forefront of delivery, and what is happening is the government as a public institution is shrinking in its delivery responsibilities because everybody says privatize everything, all of this. For honestly social goods, we believe the non-profit public-private partnership is a very valuable template because be it tomorrow healthcare or COVID is a classic example. Honestly, if for example, there was a non-profit pharma, and honestly, Oxford vaccine is that. If it actually does not have AstraZeneca and had a whole lot of government saying, okay, we are just helping you with some kind of grants and the IP will be open source, anybody can just copy and, there is no money making out of it. We just want people to be rid of COVID. And if we can open source the vaccine through a non-profit public-private partnership, and somebody like Oxford is actually doing the work of the private, non-profit private sector, and if it's funded by government actors, this is the power of what, solutions that can come from this template. And that we believe is a very exciting, the social business concept of UNIS, along with the government becoming institutionally a investor, right? Whichever shape or form, is a very new template that can actually reimagine all the social goods. Obviously, cars can continue to be made by all the luxury makers, but what are essential services, right? Those we have to really take control back. and we have to bring markets to become a power of good, in addition to just being worried about feeding you a lot of data or figuring out what you're doing digitally and stuff like that.
Okay, thanks, Kalyan. I do agree with your observations there. And since a lot of our focus is as much as on collaboration, but it is also on technology and stuff. And Moncho, I know in your comments, perhaps you can talk about. We heard from Ranjani a little bit about how they are leveraging technology, whether it's Ekal on wheels or tablets and stuff. With your sort of rich history in Anandpur and stuff, how do you see sort of, and you truly sort of the grassroots work that you've been doing over the years, how do you see at some level, I mean, there's obviously access to data is still expensive, in these some of these communities, WhatsApp is, we think there is WhatsApp, but people only can afford, not the smartphones, but basic phones and stuff. How do you see sort of technology playing in the sort of remotest sort of parts that you're working? And maybe that's equally applicable also to Ranjani and maybe Kalyan. You can also comment on if you have a point of view on that. But maybe I can start with you, Moncho, here. And while technology, how do you get to the last mile when there is basic more fundamental issues for them to worry about?
Actually, it's interesting because people out there in the rural communities, in the villages, quite enterprising and quite revolutionary, really. If you, like we run a professional school. It's basically a school that teaches languages to be able to get a job afterwards, because once you finish your usual university, the system doesn't really help you to get a job. So learning foreign languages has created another opportunity. But come COVID-19, suddenly that entire school had to stop, But the last 4 months, we were able to continue the education, the teaching of the languages online. But every student was from a different village and remote village. And I actually was visiting one village and I saw 4 or 5 kids sitting on top of a mountain. And then I asked, who are those guys? What are they doing up there? And they said, oh, they're all the professional school kids, because that's where they get the best reception, So they make sure that they have access. People want opportunities. They don't want just charity, but opportunities, and they're willing to take the opportunities and work for it. So this is where even our DT, for example, we've talked a lot about how to use technology and everything, but I guess COVID-19 is making us move a bit faster than we had prepared. And this is where Wheels Foundation has been part of it and has come forward, and we're working on different projects and opportunities that we can have for the future. So yes, I think working together, and also, as you mentioned, working with government. Government is the key actor, is the big actor in the field. The resources they have, the reach they have is bigger than anybody else. And it's important, and we have done it for a very long time, working with government in various different projects. And that's really, really important.
Okay, thanks. Ranjani, any comments from you?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I'd like to say that definitely COVID just brought forth this amazing reality to all of us, at least to me, about how prevalent technology is in the rural areas. I mean, before COVID, if I wanted to talk to my grassroots workers, they would say, oh, cell phone, conference call, it's very difficult. Now they're like, oh, is it Zoom or Google Meet? So they have suddenly, because of COVID, there seems to be really a reach of technology everywhere. And even, what I thought was before that, they don't have smartphones and things like that, it is really getting much more widespread, I would say. And Geo, definitely, we have to thank Geo for the amount of connectivity that has come. I think the biggest role that the government can play is to bring that connectivity. And I heard that from Modi ji saying that, fiber optic in every village. Once you do that, I think the skill training, we don't then need a road, right? Once the fiber is there, I think the opportunity is just tremendous, at least in the areas where we have connectivity. In few of our, areas where we have strong connectivity, we are really experimenting with doing e-commerce. We have very good products that come out from the village, agricultural products. And we are like, if you can connect, to e-commerce, can we do the selling? And that has been very, very successful. And that is a model I think we can scale very easily if you just have a plug, and play model that we can do. So I really, and again, the same thing, if you look at health, before COVID, telehealth and those ideas were not very well taken, but now the government is pushing it. And also people, I remember before the villagers would say, the tablet is not a doctor, so you didn't get that kind of a, validity, but now they understand it so much better. So I think if innovative solutions can come up, this is the right time for it. We are at that moment where connectivity is just, really blossoming so much, whether 2G, 3G, whatever, but I think even 4G, 5G might be very, very quickly. In fact, our Ekal, one of our board members, is with Qualcomm, and he's telling me that Geo is, really ready to launch in a big way. So I think we are there, and if government does its act right in that way, we don't even need other things. Entrepreneurship and technology will take over. And I think most importantly, if they have technology, what I have found is there is hyper local innovation that happens. We don't have to tell them what they need. They can bring it up. And I think just by showing them resources, showing them opportunities, I think a dramatic difference happens.
Thank you, Ranjani. Kalyan, any comments from your end?
Yeah, so just honestly, I think, the famous election line, right? Roti, kapda, makan. I think technology or internet is honestly the fourth tool. It's actually as valid as food, clothing, shelter, and internet. Honestly, it's I think it's the most powerful developmental tool that can be there, and there is beyond doubt that has to be done. Having said that, I just wanted to add a couple of points that, especially in when we say technology, there are 2-3 types. Right? One is the internet and digital and the world of digital. But we also need to remember that the technologies could also, especially in vocation, for example, you need simulation. So it is more experiential, virtual reality, AR. It's a higher order tech. Okay. And it's also not just digital, it could have a physical plus digital. So these kind of manifestations. And I just wanted to add one point that we found that somehow we know of digital divide, but there's also a purpose technology divide, which means the technologies are designed for a different class of people. We are trying to just add on, but we need to reimagine for somebody like spoken tutorial is a fantastic example of a technology that has been designed for a different category of people. So when these people start becoming core to your technology design, that's when I would say more transformation can happen. I keep giving an example. There's so much research that happens in obesity, but much lesser compared to malnutrition. Though the volume of malnutrition, just the number-wise, is much higher than obesity. So same thing is happening with Silicon Valley technologies. We need to remember the bottom 4 or 5 billion people and also think of technologies that work for them, not necessarily as an add-on, but as a prima facie design principle.
And I think, make an interesting sort of point. Our own experience with that is, when you think of technology, it's not internet-enabled devices, it's not cell phones, right? If you look at our own experience, for example, in the state of Bihar, for 100 consecutive days, Bihar government has been broadcasting education programs for children. Right. And now several states have taken that cue, saying, remember, at least for the folks in the United States, Sesame Street was there. Many of the people who have seen Sesame Street and actually learned stuff. And I think there are multiple mediums. And to what Rajni said, often people find what is, relevant for them. I mean, there's this recent example I saw. There was a radio show. A Sarpanch had opened up his, car in the village. And he had, blasting the speakers, and children are actually sitting socially distant and listening to that message on the radio kind of thing. So people, I mean, I don't know if the right thing to call it, this is the Indian jugaad, but whatever it is, but I think people find innovative ways to, get, overcome issues of affordability and sort of access, I'd say. I know we're sort of getting to that time where we probably have a couple of questions. But maybe, let me throw a sort of slightly different thing to this. And again, Moncho, maybe I can start with you. So if somebody were to give you like a magic wand and say, if there's one thing that you wish for and, it'll happen, what might that be? And, you could ask for anything, but what that be? And maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Well, I don't really believe in magic wands, I believe in hard work and on the ground and doing the work. But yes, I mean, what really, I believe in, as I said earlier, in the power of humanity. Like I mentioned, India for India. There's one example of a woman, she sells vegetables in a village. And from every first sale that she makes, she puts 5 rupees away for India every single day, you know? So I think there are so many tremendous opportunities and desires to really make things better, change the world. And we need to really get together the experiences that we have with different organizations, government, all to come together, networking or whatever you call it, solidarity. What we can see actually now with the present situation, solidarity in the world is one can see that it's really important. And that's the way forward. We need to come together and support each other and help each other. That's the key for me.
Thank you, Moncho. I agree. There's no substitute to hard work, but obviously, I'm saying if you live in a utopian world, then you're not. But let's at least aim to get there. Even if, as they say, the journey is the sort of destination. But Ranjani, what would that be?
Well, I love magic. I think that's a good thing. So, well, for me, I'll put 2 things actually. One is on the side, as I said again, technology. I really believe if we could have that connectivity, into the villages, I really think that will make a dramatic difference. I'm positive about that. Is a magic wand. But on the other side, in a mindset change, I think that is another thing that magically that I would like everybody to have. Is the fact that, even when I was growing up in India, I always used to think that the villagers need to come to the city, or come to America, right? To have a good life. If I educate my Ekal child, the Ekal child should go to America and, head Google like Sundar Pichai. I mean, he didn't come from an Ekal village, but still. But that mindset should change. I think we really need to start thinking about how we can empower people in their own areas to make a big difference. And I think when that is a very, very important mind shift, that if all, NGOs, I know that most of them on this panel think like that, but don't put us, because we see this is where, all the Nirbhaya problems, all the migrant labor problems happens because people are uprooted from their home and then put somewhere else. So if we could work together, what Gandhiji said, right? Let the village develop in its way. I think at Gandhiji's time, we didn't have the tools to make it happen. We have the tools to make it happen now. Now, if we could shift that mindset as well, and I think that would make a big difference.
Okay. Kalyan, for your, bring us back to reality often. Just what is your sense?
Yes. So I think that's a very interesting question. If you ask me the big wand, point, I think, see, at the heart of it is our, way of thinking about profit maximization versus, using capitalism only for profits. I honestly think capitalism can serve purpose also. And therefore, I think we have experienced in the last 50 years the magic of what markets have done for individuals. They've got richer, everything is great. But I think the next 50 years should be about deploying the power of those efficiencies for planet and for people. Okay. So that I think is possible with this not-for-profit social enterprise or social business model. It's important that we become mainstream. We are not seen as, okay, incidentally, you're a CSR, you're a 2% conversation. We should be the 85, 90%, 100% conversation. Why not? So that has to come at the heart of it. And I truly believe COVID gives us an opportunity to bring Samaj, Sarkar and Bazaar, the 3 big giants, government, market, and the civil society, to come together into singular form. It need not be, there can be a tripod that actually stands. So that I think is a possibility that this has given us, COVID.
Okay, no, thank you so much. And, I love your articulation of just bringing it back. So, we have about, less than 10 minutes to, wrap up this webinar, and it's been a sort of enriching discussion. Maybe I can invite Yogesh, our chair, to come in here to say a few words, and then and I think we are also looking to summarize this and the final few words from our speakers.
for a wonderful moderation. In fact, there was a comment made by one of the participants. Excellent moderation by Bala. I really like this positivity and going to the point without wasting time on generalities. Fabulous. Thank you very much. And before I come to some takeaways, if speakers would like to share their concluding remarks, starting from Moncho and then Ranjani ji and Kalyan, and then I would like to share some takeaways that we have picked up from our conversations today. So Moncho, for you, would you like to make any concluding remarks?
Thank you, Yogesh, and thank you, Bala, for all the wonderful sharing that you have done today. It was and the opportunity created by Global Wheels Foundation. I really look forward to the tremendous opportunities that can be created with all of us coming together. And I hope I can also visit, Ranjani and Kalyan, the amazing work that you are doing, so that we can learn something from you as well, and not just end it here. But I'm always looking to build relationship with other organizations and different projects and works around the country and around the world. And this is one really good platform and an opportunity to learn about a couple of them. And I really I hope we can connect afterwards and learn from each other. So thank you to everyone.
Ranjani ji.
Thank you so much again, Wheels, for putting together this beautiful, beautiful panel. And I echo your sentiments, to hear positivity, I think that is the most beautiful thing, because we are all working in places where, people often believe that, it's really difficult to make the changes that all of us are trying to do. But it is really an honor to be with everybody here to make that change. Again, my one real desire is I'm hoping that after this panel, we will have something concrete come out of it, where all of us can actually come together and maybe have a single project, that is an integration of all our strengths that we put together and go from there. And futuristically, one desire that I have is such panels have more female representation. It's not you, I know you try to bring it, but we need to have more people participate at the nonprofit level as well. I know at the grassroots level, there are many. So hopefully in the future that will happen as well. But again, thank you for opening our minds, and thank you for bringing us together.
So Kalyan.
Yeah, so Yogesh, first let me thank Bala, Moncho and Ranjani. Honestly, it's humbling to see the work that Pratham, RDT and Ekal, it's a phenomenal, I honestly don't belong in that company, but it's just learning perspective is great. And I must take this opportunity to thank Wheels team. I know from the days, Hitendra conceived the expansion of Wheels to today, it's such a fascinating journey. With Rajat, Arjun, you, Ashang, Suresh, and and Ambassador. So I think it's been a phenomenal journey, and you guys truly, like the name Wheels, are always moving and making us move. So that I think is a fantastic. We would call it a Skal Chakra. You're not just any wheel; you're also wheel of time. So I think that's been a phenomenal journey, and it's like homecoming. So for me, Wheels was always part of our show. And then, of course, in India, Satyajit and others are doing a fabulous job. So keep at it. And I think, more strength and more power. I keep telling people that COVID generally means economic downturn, but for the wheel sector, it is actually boom time. We have to do much more work for impact because there's so much of loss and of lives and livelihoods. And this is the time when we have to stand up and count, right? So thanks again for a fantastic platform and really humbled with the wonderful, panelists. Bala, of course, has been riveting. So I actually think I should speak less, let him speak more. But anyway, thank you.
But I'll just make one quick comment. I really thank Wheels for pushing collaboration. I think NGOs really could use that, and for being that little bit of a lamp that's doing that. Really, I think you're going to make a tremendous impact. And Hitendra always is focused on rural, for urban, forever and ever. I think that has been very inspirational. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, we will take up on Moncho's offer. Definitely we'll visit Anantapur. I'm from Andhra, so and Ekal, of course, I know, but I'll definitely visit again. It's always fascinating to learn. I wasn't, the solar bus is fascinating. I want to definitely sit in the same. So we will do all of that. So thank you.
Sure, we'll all go there together.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So thank you very much, Moncho, Ranjani ji, and Kalyan for your excellent and insightful remarks. And thanks to Bala once again for acting as a moderator. So we've had the whole session was so beautifully moderated, and the kind of conversation we had was so enriching. And thanks also to the entire team of volunteers and collaborators who worked very hard to make this event happen. Here are a few key takeaways from this webinar today. Let me just link education, entrepreneurship, and development.
It's 11.
Digital literacy is required besides the traditional means of education. Social enterprise is critical. Technology for bringing together Samaj, Sarkar, and Bazaar. Replicability of government collaboration is in. The model and the template. Social business models that focus on social good are the need. Innovative school models of by the people, of the people, for the people, and training of teacher is a critical component, and curriculum is very unique. Technology needs to be leveraged for not just providing students with tools, laptops, but for tracking student success, delivery, progress, a whole lot of things we have seen. So new education policy presents opportunity with its emphasis on local languages, focus of preschool and courses in different vocational training. NGOs are the driver and government is the enabler. In fact, I think we should change this term. There's no government, there's no non-government. We all are participants in accelerators for development. So let's call all of us, including government, the corporate, the NGOs, and everybody who's working there as development accelerators. This is what we are, thinking about in Mission Samriddhi. So contribution by every person counts, whatever be the amount of service. Bring in the participation and ownership in the cause. Volunteers help bring down the cost is an important element that we have seen, the amount of volunteers. Collaboration with government requires NGOs who, besides their passion for development, are both socially driven and revenue driven models. Results are amazing, and magic happens when you bring quality education to the most underprivileged through NGOs and collaboration with the government. So in summary, I think what we find is that absolutely the collaboration is the key, and this webinar has offered us an opportunity for that, bringing that collaboration into real action. These takeaways, we are also going to refine, polish them, clean them up, and they will be published on our website and by PanIIT magazine. A link to today's event and recording will also be on our website, www.wheelsglobal.org and www.wheelscharitable.org, where there is also a donate button. Finally, thanks to all the attendees, and we hope you will join us for the next webinars. We will be joining PanIIT USA on September 10th with Sri Ashish Chauhan, CEO of Bombay Stock Exchange, and Sri Vinay Nair, gold medalist from IIT Madras and professor at Wharton, University of Pennsylvania. This discussion will be moderated by Mr. Deven Banerjee of LinkedIn on FinTech. Immediately following that, on 12th September, Wheels is proud to host Sri Shashi Tharoor, who will be in a dialogue with Sri Anil Bhandari, Chairman of the Wheels Advisory Board. They will be talking about global relations, post-COVID, and the role for the United Nations. Stay safe and keep well and enjoy the rest of the weekend. Thank you.
Start looking up dictionaries, Mr. Saigal. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Everyone.
And we can have the slideshow for the benefit of those who would like to see it, who missed the slideshow in the beginning about wheels. So I apologize. There seems to be some technical difficulty in sharing the slideshow, and would like to conclude this webinar here itself. Thank you very much. The slideshow would be available on our site. Satyajit, we will make sure that this is available there.